Hello everyone, thank you for joining us, and let me introduce my great colleague Jordi Rossel. He has his PhD from a quite famous department of economics at Barcelona. Right now he's working at the University of Girona, and he regularly published in top-tier public administration journals. His research interest lies in public-private partnership, green public procurement, corruption, and generally empirical data analysis. So Jordi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you all of you for your assistance. Well, I think if you were expecting a combat between quantitative and qualitative one, I think that this is not the right workshop, because I think that there's an agreement after all between us, no? I've done my PhD in an econometrics department. I also have my undergraduate major in environmental science. So I think that I have a lot of influence from clearly quantitative methods, no? But over time, one realized that maybe just you change your view and you start and you think that the best way is you try just to complement both. So just let me open just a general presentation. So, while Charles was talking, so I have the possibility to react and make some changes in order just to avoid some repetition. So I think some of them, they are not going to, so maybe once maybe make more sense if I will have explained it just before Charles. But even that, I think that the overall idea is that we are going to share some common idea. For me, one of an important idea is environmental issues are mostly in science, no? It's in biology, chemistry, ecology. So I think that quantitative methods have predominate this debate. No, these quantitative methods involve a systematic and empirical investigation of different observable phenomena, and we use statistics, mathematics, or computational techniques. So, and why we use these techniques? I think that we have a certain desire of objectivity. No? It is we think that using quantitative methods, we are going to be more objective rather than using a qualitative one. So obviously, after Charles' talk, we know that this is not true. But this desire of objectivity is also related to, for example, the issue of replicability. No? We would like that if someone is in another part of the world and wants to replicate our study, that is able to replicate this study. Usually what it happens is in qualitative one, this replication is not as easy. And one thing that also we like is that we are able to generalize these findings across larger population after all. However, the environmental issues has started to appear in the social science agenda. I don't know since when, maybe since 30, since 40, or maybe since the explosion 15 or 20 years ago. So in the social science, where researchers, we aim to understand complex human behaviors, societal trends, quantitative methods share the same arena than the qualitative methods. There is an interaction between them to achieve the best of these two worlds. So this is one thing that we have realized is there are the good methods and there are the bad methods. No, there is a mixed arena. There is a mix of them in which we can achieve the best of these two worlds. So I think that from this workshop and from this discussion, we were able to recognize which are the importance of these qualitative methods and also from the quantitative methods. So I think that qualitative methods, they provide us a very good, deep contextual insights. They complement quantitative approach by enriching our understanding, because sometimes when we make some analysis, some quantitative analysis, we need an explanation of our results. And this is going to be one of the issues that I would like to focus on this research, because sometimes we look for a number, we look for an impact, and sometimes what we are not able to explain what is happening behind that. And I think that what is happening behind that is very important, that we should rely on qualitative methods and the importance, after all, of mixing them. So, after all, quantitative methods are highly valued for their rigor and precision, and the integration of both provides us a very most comprehensive agenda on that. So I think that quantitative methods are also good if we want to to assess the effectiveness of sustainability initiatives, to predict the future of environmental changes. So I'm an economist. We really like to make predictions and maybe to fail them. So trying to make environmental predictions, I think that we are very far from what we call the right versions. So after all, this empirical approach should ensure us that sustainability strategies are also based on reliable data, and in order to be more effective and more efficient after that. So I'm not just going to focus too much on this description, but I think that is important. Like if some of you you want to have like a clear idea between quantitative and qualitative one, I think that this is a really good summary about what we are doing. So I think that when you are preparing a research, you really need to answer yourself which type of methods you are going to use. And I'm just going to talk one of the bias that we make quantitative researchers. Usually quantitative researchers, what we try to do is to look for data. It is like we look for data, and when we find this data, we try to exploit this data. After all, we are inductive, no? We are using this inductive that Charles previously talked about that. And I'm not so sure if it's the best way, no? Because like you find this data and you try to generalize this data. Even you try just to have a better scheme, you try to do it on the most robust way. Sometimes it is not on what we can call on the most scientific way, no? Or maybe the old scientific way that they explain us, no? It's like, well, you make an hypothesis, you try to contrast this hypothesis, no, with your methodology and so on. And if it fails, you should start again. However, one of the problems that I think that we have is like social science is not the same than science. In social science, first, roughly speaking, we can say that we do not have the same budget. So we cannot do the same things that people that in science is doing, because sometimes we do not have enough money, for example, just for having for conducting, for example, experiments, which are really, really expensive. So it is not relatively common to find experiments in social science, while in the case of science, it is relatively common to have these experiments. Or in the case of the field, no? For example, in medicine, it's easy to make an experiment. Maybe in accounting, it's more complicated to conduct an experiment, or it is not as common as it is. So these are the main difference about them. So just well, I probably say that we are not going to have a combat between quantitative and qualitative methods, but I think that it is just important just to have like some understanding, some just what can we obtain from these quantitative methods, no? Which are the type of quantitative methods that we have. So here I put like 10 of them. The last ones, I am not completely sure that they are only quantitative, so they are just also they can be shared with qualitative one. But even that, what we can say is like, for example, the first one is like the measurement of impact and change. No, these quantitative methods allow us to measure and analyze the impact of sustainability initiatives. No, it is the case of experimental or quasi-experimental methods, which later in like the last slide, in the next slide, I will refer on that. So this is we are really interested on that. No? It's like you do something, and which is the impact of this thing that you have to do. And I think that people that we use quantitative methods in social science, this is one thing that we really like it, because we are obtaining, I think, that the best of these two worlds. A recent and a more trending one is this large-scale data analysis. Nowadays, it's becoming cheaper to obtain large data sets, but so we are talking about the census data, surveys. Just most of you know about making online surveys. Like, so the cost of making an online survey is clearly cheaper. Cheaper does not mean that you have to pay for that. It means that transaction cost. It means that the time that you need to prepare it is clearly less than if you send a letter and you expect for the reply and so on. But I think that having large-scale database does not mean that your data is reliable. And this is one thing that we are starting to see. Like when you are making this, when you have this data that is clearly large, you have like millions of observations. It does not mean that this is that this is not better than a simple interview with 5 participants. So it is like maybe it is more reliable to have an analysis with a 5 interviewed rather than having a model with millions of observations. I really think a really good thing that we like is predictive modeling. Like quantitative techniques like regression analysis can also be used to develop these predictive models for future sustainability outcomes. But this predictive modeling, they rely on previous observations. And another one is like what we call is like the cost-benefit analysis. The cost-benefit analysis, what it happens is that is a tool that public administration they are using in order to realize if the impact of their policies have a societal return on that. So I don't know, someone is moving the slides. I don't know. Okay, so a cost-benefit analysis, what is happening on that is that you can obtain which is the public return of your investment. Hello, it has disappeared, and I did not touch anything.
Sorry, I think it was me who did something. I apologize for disrupting your presentation.
No problem. So yeah, so I was talking about this cost benefit, which is really important. And and this is an issue that the public administration is really interested in doing this cost benefit analysis. I think it's it is started in America and also in Europe. In some countries, we continue to do this type of analysis. But what is really interesting is like what the technical the technical answer to the question is and what the politicians do. It is like even we have a robust analysis that they say that, well, you should do this construction, you should do this policy or not. Politicians goes in another way. So even you have a number and it's a clear number. If you have a positive return or you have a negative return, quantitative methods are not useful in some countries, like, for example, in the case of Spain or in the case of Italy, which is relatively common. Another one method that over time I really started to rely less, which is correlation and causation, especially the case of causation, because I think that when we are able to find some data, sometimes to try to build a model, we try to make a regression analysis, and that's it. It is like we obtain this data, we make a regression analysis, and we find an explanation. We really like to find these stars, these p-value stars, and we feel better when we find this effect. However, I think that there is a trend, and we should start to think about that. We need this theoretical framework. When Charles talked about empirical and theoretical, I think that we need just to merge these two versions. You cannot be empirical without a theoretical background that explains what you are doing. Because sometimes what we find is like you, rather than finding causation, what caused that, you find a correlation. And this correlation can be spurious. This number 7, this visualization of complex data, it has emerged as the second one, as large-scale data analysis. So here what we have is like, so nowadays we are able just better to visualize data, this GIS mapping of pollution levels or whatever. So thanks to this visualization of complex data, we are able to move on a better way. The evaluation of policy intervention is one that I also really like it, because like we are relatively close to the science methods, because we are evaluating the effectiveness of environmental policies, and we are just analyzing the pre and post intervention. So we are also linked to quasi experiments, or if we are lucky, to experiments. These last two ones, which are not involved, it is like, because like I am not so sure that we are in the pure quantitative way, these comparative studies. I think that they are more focused, or they are more rich from the qualitative one. And also when we try to understand the human behavior, I think that even people take like this, some authors classified on the quantitative one. I think that we are really on the qualitative ones. It's like, if we want to understand human behavior, it is better just to use these qualitative ones. So for me, what is really important, and I think that one thing that we like to try to build are these experiments, these experiments or quasi-experiments. I think that they are important when we try to look for an impact of change, when we try to analyze this policy intervention, and when we look for causation. The problem is like, it's not easy to find a situation in which we can make this experiment, because like, and all of you, that it is in the case of medicine. We have people, you are going to be in the treated group, you are going to be in the control group, and we apply something, or we apply a placebo, and we find the effect. The problem is that in social science, we cannot do that. Yes, we can do this, but in most of the cases, we cannot do this experimental design. So we try to construct, we try to imitate this experimental design. So that's why we are trying to move to this quasi-experimental design. And I think that there is a relation between a rigor and the type of experiment. So I think that if we are making an experiment, your rigor is relatively high, however, it's relatively expensive to do it. That's why most of the experiments until nowadays rely on science. In the case of social science, we start to move to what we call quasi-experiments. We try to imitate, we try to imitate the conditions of these experiments. So it is the case, for example, of the COVID issue. The COVID issue has become I think the best quasi-experiment that we can find, and that's why we have this explosion of papers, citations, and so on, that nowadays they are starting to decrease. And from these methods, one thing that we can look for is like, we can classify them between what we call the internal and external validity. The internal validity is like, you have a really good confidence that the causal relationship that you are testing is not influenced by other variables. So you are testing something, you apply something, and you find this effect that is only due for this variable. However, one of the problems that you have, like, you do not have too much external validity. Maybe it's difficult to generalize this issue to other contexts. So that's why here it appears like different methodologies in the quantitative literature, in which we can see that we lose internal validity, but we gain external validity. So it is the case, for example, of regression discontinuity, or the case of diff and diff, the difference in difference, in which we try to gain this external validity. However, we lose this internal validity because we are replicating the conditions of an experiment. And look at that, the case of multivariable regression, no? This regression in which, okay, we can generalize them, but the most important weakness of this regression analysis is that we are uncertain about if other variables are influencing our models. And that's why, and I'm just referring to the beginning of my presentation, the importance of having a theoretical background. So here I also going to talk about my book. So in that case, I will just show you a working paper that we have with many authors and also with Michael Plasek. So I will try to show you which is the importance of quantitative and qualitative methods. So this study is related to green public procurement. It is an issue. Green public procurement is if public administration, they are using environmental tools on their procurement activity. So this is a really quick summary. So most of the study until nowadays, they focus on trying to understand which are the factors that encourage public administration to go on the green way. The problem is that obtaining this data is relatively costly. And most of the previous paper, what they have do is like on the qualitative methods, which means interviews. And we try to interview as much people as we can. Or some of them, they are quantitative and they start to analyze contract notices, this procurement activity of governments. What does it mean being quantitative on this way? It means having a PhD student, having a research assistant that starts to analyze all the contract notices of public administrations. So there is a really huge transaction cost. So when we were looking at that, we realized that when they make surveys to people that if they use green public procurement or not, we have a research question, which was, who is answering after all these surveys? Are answering only people that wants to implement or that are pro-green, and those that are more gray, they are not responding this? No, it is like, wow, it seems nice, no? So until now, there has been these qualitative methods, and now what we try to do is like quantitative methods. So we send a questionnaire to different contracting authorities, and we know if these authorities, they reply or they answer or not, and we classify some of them. However, these authorities, what they do not know is that we were monitoring them. We were monitoring if they were green or not. We were able to analyze with a word searching program if they are implementing green public procurement or not. So thanks to that, and that we are able to monitor their procurement activity, we were analyzing which are the characteristics of those that answer and those that do not answer. Well, we make like some statistical analysis, and obviously what we find is like those that answer the questionnaire, the level of green public procurement was clearly higher than those that they do not answer the questionnaire. So it is clearly a bias, and our contribution to the literature is like maybe most of the literature of your results are biased. We make some regression. I will not call, I think that it is like with not a huge fundamental background, but even the results goes on the same direction. But with our study, it is like, well, our research question was qualitative methods may be biased. So our results, we were very happy because after all, thanks to our quantitative methods, we can say, wow, they are biased. No, it is like all the previous findings, they are biased because only those that they are answering are pro-green. However, one problem that we face now, it is like, why? It is like, okay, we have used quantitative methods, but we are not able to know what's behind that. It is like, I think, and this is like a second step, no? And I think that this is, I want just to link it to Charles' presentation, the importance of these qualitative methods. No, it is like this paper should be, well, qualitative is not okay. We use a quantitative one, but we still nowadays, we need qualitative methods to understand what is behind that. So I think that this is one thing that, and I clearly endorse Charles' comment, in which like we are going to see more papers in which qualitative methods and quantitative methods, they are going to share their scenario. However, just most of you are researchers and you face some problems to have data access and data availability. I think that these are our critical concerns. So data access is clearly complicated, no? Their availability, their cost, always cost, as I previously say, is not always paying for data, because most of public data is free. The problem is like the cost of obtaining, the cost of mixing, the cost of joining them, which can be really, really cost. And sometimes we cannot compare this data. And the issue in which I'm really concerned, which is reliability. I think that it's better to make an analysis with 5 observations that maybe than millions of observations. So you can read papers in which having millions of observations can imply that this data is biased. However, if these 5 people that you have in your interview, it is representative, and you can this process that you are making of this interview is reliable, this issue is not about the number. This issue is about quality. So it is like an issue of reliability. So I'm just going to skip my two slides, which is like weaknesses in social science research on sustainability, because more or less, which is a summary on that, and also how we can mitigate these challenges that we have. I think that it is more interesting if we keep it for the final discussion. But just let me conclude, which is the first very important idea, which is, and also I think it's the Charles idea, which is quantitative and qualitative methods. They are going to complement, they complement each other, and we are going to see each other in many papers, because if we want to obtain the best of these two worlds, we need this. Obviously, I think that we are going to see more experiments across experiments in social science because of they are relatively robust. And I think that also for the explosion that we are seeing of the number of papers that they are using data and quantitative methods, we will see that a theoretical background is going to be more important over time. And one thing that I think that most of papers, and I think that we are seeing in most of the reviewers, is the reliability of the data in order that we can generalize this data. So thank you for your time, and I'm obviously open to all the questions and to have a rich debate on that.